This is day 3 of the August 87 7-day retreat. The things that were said yesterday about inquiry have brought a lot of further question and discussion in meetings. The first thing that was said to me was that inquiry, that pronunciation was all right. And I just looked it up in the dictionary. Both things are okay. And since inquiry seems to come out, it's silly to say both words, first one and then the other. One person said, inquiry still seems to imply making an effort. Can't there just be the quietness of sitting with a choiceless awareness? Another person wondered whether this process of inquiring is thinking, involves thinking, or is it wordless? One person wondered whether the inquiring or inquiry didn't need an inquirer, and therefore creating dualism, implying dualism. The dualism between the inquirer and what he or she inquires into. One person mentioned several people. When I hear you talk about interest or passionate interest, I don't have that passion. And it evokes immediately the thought, feeling, I should have that. Or, what if I don't have it, then this is a hopeless case. One person said the interest and passion may come or does come if there is an insight, if there is a glimpse of what is so, what is true. Then that may arouse the passion to inquire further or to find out or whatever. But so this seems to be just something that comes on its own just as awareness, the way we talked about it yesterday, happens. So mustn't one guard against now wanting this passion, having that as a goal. I wonder whether we should begin with a question about effort, whether there isn't effort involved in inquiring, wondering. Which means we have to be clear about what we mean by the word effort, so that you and I both use the word in the same way. it's very important that we use the word in the same way. And yet let's keep in mind that the words we choose to express are not the most important thing. What is important that there is a meeting on a deeper level, a level of looking, wondering, or awareness out of not knowing, not having the answers ready. If we participate together on this level of not knowing, wondering, open to what we discover, or open to how the inquiry leads us, then the words can be flexible. We don't need to attach to the words. If a word is poor, evokes all kinds of misleading or distracting associations, and we can drop that word and find a new one, as long as we are together and wanting to find out something and realizing that the words that we're using are not the real thing. Then this whole aspect of defending words drops away, the need to defend what one said, which we are so engaged in all the time. In a conversation, that one may have said something, and just because A said it, A feels obliged from habit and training to defend now what he or she has said. It can lead to argument, strife, battle, and getting at each other's throats even. And it's not necessary in this kind of work. One tries to find the right words, but one is flexible about it. So what do we mean by the word effort? Inquiry seems to take an effort. If one refers to energies that are involved, then inquiry is effort. It takes energy. What is or seems to be without effort or much effort is to flow along or roll along on the habitual tracks of one's thinking and knowing. That seems to be involve minimal effort or energy. To keep moving in the same tracks and grooves of our thinking, which is old. Gets a little bit of a change here and there, something new added, something modified, but it is basically that we think in habitual grooves, and that is something we feel is without effort. And to stop in that groove and reconsider, wonder about the groove itself, the thinking, the opinions, the answers, the knowledge, that is a different kind of energy. It seems to go against the current, the strong current of our habitual thoughts and ways of doing and thinking. It has a tremendous current to it. And to stop, as it were, in the middle of this current and wonder what one is doing. May seem like holding up the energy of that current, or needing the energy that the current has to do the looking and rethinking or inquiring. Whether it's actually so, each one of us, let's look how it is when one does it. Let's not be too speculative and theoretical about it. That's the beauty of all of this. It's up to all of us to watch this stuff for ourselves. See how it goes. Often in talks over the years we've said that in awareness, in attention, there is no effort. And by that is meant that there is no willpower directing it, controlling it, or trying to bring it about. That is not needed. As a matter of fact, if that willpower is applied, then it is not awareness, then it is the exercise of willpower, trying to attain a certain goal. The goal being attention, but the process being willpower, achieving, driving. Now, in wondering about, yesterday we talked about where does the attention come from, or what happens at the instant of attention. I would distinguish interest in finding out from willpower to achieve a goal, because one doesn't know what the goal will be, or what the outcome will be, what one will find out, and whether it will have any effect, one doesn't know. The inquiry is not done to get something in the future as a means to an end. It is for its own sake, right now. Is that so? Is it possible for us human beings who are so goal-oriented, so brought up in this philosophy of means to an end, is it possible? Does it actually occur? Can it actually occur to be interested in something for its own sake? Not because it will get me a better state or out of a miserable state, make me famous or whatever, make me more educated, more knowledgeable. These goals, since they are so inculcated, they may crop up, but one can see that they have nothing to do and dissipate the energy from trying to find out something for its own sake, because it's happening. And one is in the dark about it. One has noticed how one is ruled by habits and drives, ignorant, dark about it, unconscious. And one wonders. Or one wonders what something is. When one doesn't apply one's knowledge and words and images that are already in the brain, and therefore hide the flower, the rock, the bird, as they are. I think this is possible. This happens all the time in human beings, trying to find out something for its own sake, not knowing whether it will pay off or not. Children certainly display that all the time. question, what's that for? What's that good for? It comes later. That's the beauty of watching little children. Their wide-eyed interest in things, in everything, anything that moves. And a delight. Right now. Not, I'll watch this so maybe then I'll get some delight from it. And yet being programmed and conditioned the way we are, it is entirely possible to, and happens. One only needs to observe in oneself. It happens that one now makes the effort to get that attention, that awareness. One has done it with other methods, and if one is method-oriented or can only think in those terms, then one sees it this way. But we're questioning it. So, since we're questioning it, a rigid tunnel or groove or track can break, can begin to crack. So that light and air and water trickles in all over. If one doesn't have a question, and people say that, I really don't have a driving question. Well, why make a problem out of it? If one does make a problem out of it, one has a question. Why does one? And if one asks that question, then to be quiet, not to say, okay, now I have a question, I'll repeat it. Why does one make a problem out of not having a question? Is it because one thinks now one is inferior? In this place people seem to be asking questions and I don't have one. So do I fit in? That's what somebody asked me. It came in a longer conversation, but in there was at one point, so is this place here there for people to ask questions, for people to inquire? I can't say that. I don't know why people come here. Somebody may come here to have a week in the woods and along the stream, in the meadows, to observe the deer, or just get some quiet from the noise of the city. Somebody may come here just to find out what this place is doing, what's going on here. People may come with all kind of different reasons, purposes, ideas. And what is going on in a talk like this is not foisted, I hope, not foisted upon anybody. This is completely optional to come for a talk. I do ask questions, but it doesn't mean that you have to, too, because I do. If there is no question at all, and it is not a problem, if in fact there is this sitting with choiceless awareness, the awareness being without a chooser in the middle who says, this is what I'm going to attend to, and that is what I don't want to touch. One may not put it that way, but this is how the mind, the brain may attach or reject. If that's not going on, no choice, just the openness of being I don't know what word to put to it. Not bringing one's knowledge to bear on what's happening, but allowing it to be there, unfolding, defolding. Then there is no question. There's neither a problem nor a question. If one begins to attach to this state, begins to enjoy it, say, boy, I really got it now. I think a question is indicated. One may not ask that. Who is enjoying it? Who has got it made? Is there someone separate from this choiceless awareness? Then it is not choiceless awareness. Because the someone who's there enjoying it may, unnoticed to himself or herself, make choices of what will be listened to and what will be kept out so as not to disturb this beautiful state of quietness and choiceless awareness. So it's helpful every once in a while to wonder whether a self-image has sprouted, which happens all the time. It has happened since we've been little and been told what we are and what we should be and been rewarded for what we are. And maybe it's not just through that. Maybe this image making is an inherent or inherited process. I don't know. And no matter where it comes from originally, it can be watched as it is born every moment. This is what we call a self-consciousness, the keeping tab on oneself, how one is doing, whether one is getting someplace, whether one is successful or a failure, how one compares with others, how good one is, how poor one is. Can that appear in the choiceless awareness so that it does not take root and begin to narrow and rigidify the field? Because if it goes unnoticed, then it takes over the self-image. And with the self-image in charge, in the center of our being, there is hurt if it's insulted, and good feelings when it's flattered. We're just taking these very simple two instances. All the other complex ones one can observe for oneself. The self-image is, if not observed, if not seen and dispelled in the seeing, dissipated in the seeing, if that doesn't take place, it is in charge. And it wants to enhance itself, protect itself, defend itself, aggrandize itself. It has its own life. And it feels hurt or devastated at being criticized or talked rudely to. And it flourishes when it is flattered and talked nicely to or being supported. Can choiceless awareness reveal this whole process? let's get to this question of whether inquiry is through thought, thinking things through, verbally, or is it wordless, without words? I don't think one can say what it is. It's one, sometimes is this, sometimes is a combination of looking at things and also thinking, and then looking again and questioning and looking again. We did something like this yesterday in the talk. Verbalizing a new question, but then quietly observing, without words, without knowing the answer. But one can also look at inquiry as a state of mind. Which does not necessarily need to verbalize questions. It is a state of mind which we have also called not knowing. Not being in the know and not the urge or drive to know, to get the word, to get the description, the explanation, the analysis, the cause, which is how we've been trained to think. Sometimes when we talk about inquiring or wondering, it's why I like this word wondering about something. That, I think, best describes the state of mind which is open, receptive, unprejudiced, to find out what's there. So can the state of choiceless awareness be of that not knowing? Then one sees there's no difference between the two states, inquiring and being choicelessly aware, because the awareness doesn't know. It's just aware of what's there. Knowledge is a different function of a different part of the brain. A certain part that has the interpretive capacity, has memory at its command. Whereas in the awareness that doesn't know, that is in a state of inquiry, wordless inquiry, just wondering, not knowing, that state feels as though the whole brain is alive but quiet, not offering interpretations, not offering material from the files. That scanning the files, that activity is quiet. And yet, there is a feeling of aliveness. The energies are gathering in not knowing, wondering, attending, listening, without dissipating into already knowing and what one remembers and associates with one's memories, and then the emotions all being called up. Let us go to this remark someone made. Actually, it was not about inquiry, it was about practice. A person said, when you talked yesterday about not liking the word practice because it implies the repetitiveness of exercising, it also implies the practicer, doesn't it? having a practice, the one who has this practice in order to attain the goal, the desired state of mind or state of peace, of harmony. And what we're really seriously wondering about, I think many people are, is whether this duality actually exists between the practicer or the inquirer and what she practices or inquires into. Or whether, as real as it appears to be, feels, as solid as it feels that there is an inquirer now who's inquiring, no matter how solid and real it feels, what is it made up out of? Is it the truth? Is it really a duality between me and what I'm doing? Or is there only the action? As we're inquiring right now, there are questions that are being asked, there are pauses, there is looking, there may be thinking going on. Isn't that all one unitary stream of happening? Let's call it that way. There's a question being raised. There's listening to the question. There's pausing. There's looking. There's listening. There's a moment of awareness. And then maybe another thought coming up. I am aware. How wonderful. I've got it. It's all thought. Do you see that? All thought. But we think and feel that the moment we say, I have it, that this I is something other than just thought. Maybe because it is so surrounded or embedded in deep feelings and emotions, which are so real, they are very palpable. Anger, joy, jealousy, they're very palpable emotions. But why do they have to belong to somebody? Why has there to be an owner of that? Is that again our conditioned thinking? If there is something, it must belong to somebody. Can one see how one is so stuck in modes of thinking? And that these modes of thinking, because one has thought this way all one's life, it has happened this way, provide a certain feeling of security. Or, conversely, if they are questioned, one gets to be jittery. The thought comes up, I may not exist, I may not be real, and that thought itself can evoke feelings of fear or panic. Think about it, look at it. The thought, I may not exist, can evoke fear. That's a fact. But does that fact prove that I exist, other than the I being a thought like all of our other thoughts, and the emotions surrounding the feeling of me being the functions of this organism to rally energies, to fight or escape or survive, digest, evacuate the body. All of these things are normal, ordinary, organismic functions, but can be triggered by the thoughts about oneself, one's survival, one's danger of survival, one's future happiness. All of this rallies these natural bodily functions. One needn't have any conclusion about this I, the me, the self. If one wonders about it, no conclusions, because one so quickly attaches to a theory, a dogma that the self is an illusion. One may mouth that, have learned to mouth it, find comfort in this new idea, and therefore not have to look at what the self really is. One knows it, it's an illusion. But what is an illusion? What does an illusion mean? What is the self? How does it manifest? Can it be watched, witnessed, as it manifests in its defensiveness, its pains, its fears, anger, jealousy, all precipitated almost exclusively by thought. Sometimes someone will say to me, just to think or hear you say that the self is just made up of thoughts and images and remembrances, there's no comfort. Well, it isn't meant to be a comfort. It is, if anything, it is presented as a challenge to verify for oneself what it is. And that one can do as one sits, interacts, particularly as one interacts with people, silently or verbally. Because in our interaction, the self-image is very powerful. Why is it so hard to detect? Is it because we're so involved, so absorbed with the content of our conversation or our activities, our emotions? That in this turbulence, there is no transparency to see what is actually going on. in addition to the turbulence, that is real enough. But what is it that has set it in motion? What is it that one is defending, protecting, trying to salvage or get strokes for? To say, me, it's not enough. What is this me? When I said it's not enough, what I meant was if one just says it's me, then one sort of terminates the inquiry. The stage curtain is closed. But what is this we? What is the me? I have no answers. I will watch because I'm interested. Because I've gotten hurt 1,000,000 times in my life. I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for all of us. And the individual hurt and feeling of defense or aggression that results from it, or retaliation, an urge to retaliate, which already starts in very small children. That is what is constituting the chaos in this whole world. The self-image of an individual human being, no different from a national self-image. Have to protect our image so we look strong to the Middle Easterners or the Russians, or a humiliated self-image that happened to the Germans after the First World War, a very deeply contributing factor to the rise of Hitler. Humiliated self-image played upon a strong Superman image promised in the place of the bruised, humiliated image. And people were willing to do anything to get that image of being Superman, super race, at the expense of the image of the inferior race, the subhuman race of the Jews. Or the Easterners. Everybody east of a certain river in Germany was subhuman. Poles and all these people there were considered Sumpfmenschen. You know what that means? Swamp people. And interestingly enough, in our biology book, where the German super race character type was compared to the Jew, there was a cartoon, a line drawing of a Jew and a photograph of a tall blonde man with a straight nose. It's all playing with images, and playing a deadly game. If any of you have watched the series Shoah recently over television, it was a shattering experience to watch that. One can see the extreme to which this can be taken. Image making, image defending, image attacking, image annihilating. Because for the German people, the Jews were images. after a while, one had no contact with them anymore. One didn't know who they were. One just had images. And they were of evil. To be exterminated, as one of the leaders said, like bacteria. Lethal bacteria. So coming back to this work, which I feel is of utmost importance, can one feel the connection between working on oneself, seeing what goes on in one human being, and what goes on in the world, past, present, and future? One mustn't take the German happening there as being specifically, typically German. This was something that in all the work that the producer of this movie, Shoah, he did not see, that he was dealing with universal human problems. And therefore there was something that was lacking. He was interviewed afterwards, and you were waiting for him to have come to some understanding, some deep understanding. He understood a lot, but not the depth of it. That this is what the power of thought is able to do in any human being, and it's happening all over the world. It may not happen in that magnitude, but the power of image making, the delusion, the belief in one's image, the attachment to it, and the hatred of others, not because one is in touch with them, but because one hates the image one has of them. It's universally happening, and it can be observed in oneself. Somebody told me this today. Said being next to some people in a retreat, the feeling came up, these are jerks. And then she said, I don't even know them. I haven't even looked at them. There's just this constant projection going on. Trusting the ideas and not wanting to find out the truth. Who are we? When we're naked, bare, unarmed, unmasked, without all our various costumes, with which I don't mean t-shirts, and although they can be sort of costumes too. Our neighbor who was in love, absolutely in love with Beethoven, would have t-shirts with Beethoven printed across. There's such a strong desire to be identified. And to show that identity to the public. Through our garments, our robes, and a lot of us have been through it. And I don't know whether we are through with it either. So as this one person said, there may not be a passionate interest, but one may have a glimpse of the truth of oneself, this moment, self-image, and the enormous energy of anger or jealousy coming up. One may see that to be so without any judgment. It's a clear, stark honest insight. And out of that may grow further interest and a passion to find out about oneself in relationship with each other. And not only to find out, but to wonder whether it has to keep going like this, like it has been going for thousands and thousands of years. We, at times, in our fragmented way of thinking, pride ourselves. We've become more humanitarian or more this or that, but seeing that movie Shoah, it's clear we have not. And this grew, this anti-Semitism and this obsession with the final solution of extinguishing a whole people, a whole race, grew in a country where there was a refinement of philosophy, music, poetry, play, technology, science, architecture, you name it. Good behavior of the children, obedience, doing what you were told, and so forth. So who are we? It needs just a simple question and then the openness and fearlessness of looking, observing. Without any choice. And maybe a new intelligence and a new, different kind of love grows out of that, which is not self-centered, image-centered. But it takes in the whole. Because it is the whole. We will end here for today.